I am mining investor and editor of Resource Stock Digest, Gerardo and I, here with my partner, Mr. Nick Hodge, who's also an investor and the publisher of Daily Profit Cycle. This is the 233rd episode of our weekly therapy session that we like to call Investing in Bizarro World. I always want to say investing in dummies, and sometimes that's accurate, but no, it's investing in Bizarro World. We're going to talk markets. We're going to talk NVIDIA. We're going to talk about the Trumpster a little bit. We're going to talk about gold, the technicals there. And we'll talk about some of the crazy stuff that's going on around the world as we always do. And there's, quite a bit to get into there. Before we get into all of that, Senor Hodge, how are you today? I'm back to Gerardo and I this week.
I see that. I had to actually break out my Italian the other week. I ran into some exchange students here in Spokane at the farmer's market, and my ear perked up, and I didn't have enough wine to have a good conversation, but I got a little bit out. It was good. We're doing good. Heading into the end of summer. Got the class assignments today for the kids. They're excited about their teachers. Newsletter sales are picking back up, which means September is approaching, and just in general, ready for the fall. How about you?
Same, excited. We talked a bit off air. I think I'm getting over COVID. Wife lost her voice, had, change in smell. Or I should say change in taste. I had body aches all last week. I've chalked it all up to allergies because I'm Mexican-American and we think that everything is allergies and can be cured by Vicks. But no, look, I'm well, I'm in good spirits. I've been working out every day and jogging every day and hitting the weights and the boxing gym, as always. So, push through it and no longer fatigued, feeling more energized and glad to be back at it. So I'm well. It's a long-winded way of saying I'm well. I'm excited for September. I'm excited for the end of August. I think it's a lot to look forward to. So let's get into some of that.
Let's do it.
We got to start with uranium. 16-month highs on the spot price. I had a very insightful conversation with one of the smartest people and hardest working people in the biz, Mr. Jordan Trimble. And I joked with Jordan that he's Mr. Jordan Trimble again because a year and a half ago or so when uranium had its first leg up, I joked with him that, during the bull market, I would call him Mr. Jordan Trimble because that's how people would start referring to him, right? And I think we're kicking off the second leg of the uranium bull market. Again, I mentioned a 16-month high on the spot price. The equities, more importantly, the equities are actually starting to follow suit. If you look at a 7-day chart of everything from consolidated to UEC to fission uranium, you pick your uranium name, right? Whatever horse that you're betting on, Kraken Energy, they're all starting to perk up despite the fact that we're in the midst of the summer doldrums, that we are a day away from what you just explained to me, from the lowest volume day in the stock market, right? It's people's last opportunity to really get out there and enjoy the summer before they get back in the office and the kids get back into school. And so I'm really encouraged by what I think is going to be an incredible fall. And that conversation I had with Mr. Jordan Trimble, I encourage everyone, go to Resource Stock Digest and click on that interview under exclusive interviews. It's a primer on the uranium bull market that's coming up, what he's seeing, what he thinks. And of course, he's got to talk his own book, right? He's a CEO of Sky Harbor Resources, why he believes Sky Harbor is primed for a big run during this next leg up. And I'd love to get your thoughts on it. You're more the technician and the chartist, and that'll lead into our gold conversation, but we'll get into that in a second.
Hopefully he talks to Mr. Assay Lab Manager and gets some results for us. And we'll probably Russell Lake, which they've been drilling for 8 months. I've been sneaking in, if you haven't noticed, at the end of the podcast for the past couple of weeks. When you ask me what am I watching, I tell you, watch uranium, it's at 56. Watch uranium, it's at 57. Watch uranium, Cameco's at whatever, 12-month, 22-month highs, whatever it was at. Yeah, no, I've been telling you that it was sneakily going up, and it technically, once it gets to 59.60, it's blue sky to the next level, whatever that is, 65, 70, somewhere around maybe the marginal cost of production. Wouldn't that be nice? And you've also got the instability. I was talking last month, I think it was, about jurisdictions. We were talking about Namibia. You'll remember I was talking about a minister for energy and resources, or energy and mines, and I was telling you that he wanted a bigger piece of those projects, which is where Langer Heinrich is. And then we haven't talked about Niger, which is undergoing a coup in the past couple of weeks and needs to get its shit together because it exports a lot of uranium that ends up in in French nuclear reactors. And so you've had these geopolitical scares sort of rattling the cage. And we always knew that this was a threat or a risk, but here they are materializing. And you did have Congress attach that, the Russian language to the defense bill that hasn't gone through yet, but seems like it will and get signed. So anyway, all that to say that uranium is looking really strong. I mean, together with gold and lithium has been one of the few bright spots in the commodity markets this year. I'm not sure how much more of an answer you want than that, but there's a really big not on the chart in front of me, but there's a spike up to 59.60, and then we went back down because we had some excitement in early 2022, and then here we're coming back up to that previous level, and we'll see if it's breakout or break down, but the fundamentals haven't degraded at all, so I would think it would be to the upside. But
breaking news. Yeah, listen,
irrationality and exuberance and all that stuff.
All of that, right? For sure. On a down note or up note, I guess, depending on which side you're on, the Wagner boss, which is the main party and has been the main pain in his side for Mr. Vladimir Putin, his plane just exploded along with the second most non-fanboy of Mr. Putin. And so private plane, call it a coincidence. A lot of people fall out windows. A lot of planes explode over there, but it looks to me like a decapitation of the Wagner party, at least how it's been presented over the past several years. And there's some implications there for the uranium space, aside from the human toll, obviously, with the families and everything that's going on geopolitically in Russia. But the Wagner party and the gentleman that is being rumored to be dead, that was supposed to be the mercenary group that was going to go into, getting the ensuring the Russian uranium imports that these countries have. So it's interesting. It's breaking. It happened an hour or two ago. They're still working on confirming everything, but you touched on the geopolitical uncertainty. Jordan did the same thing the other day when we spoke. And if there's one point I'd like to underscore to everybody out there, whether it's copper, whether it's uranium, whether it's lithium, you're not going to get the kind of supply that all these armchair behind the computer screen analysts are telling you is coming online. It just doesn't work that way in the mining space. And it really doesn't work that way during fourth turnings where Ecuadorian presidential candidates are being assassinated on camera. Opposition party leaders are getting, let's be frank, probably blown up on their private plane, right? I don't think it was an accident. There's images out there and you can't verify them yet because it just broke, but of missiles and the plane being hit and multiple loud bangs before the actual crashing of this plane. So those things aren't going to end anytime soon. And look, the geopolitical situation here in the United States, I had a couple of not the most polite emails from a few of you. By the way, when you leave those, y'all know you're leaving your IP addresses, right? I just want to mention that to you. But anyhow, some people didn't like the fact that I mentioned that Donald Trump was indicted. Well, guess what, motherfuckers? I didn't indict him, and frankly, I don't care. He's indicted. We talked last week. He's the leading presidential candidate for the Republican Party. It would be irresponsible of us to not mention the fact that he might not be around for that campaign, depending on how some of these indictments go. And so we talked last week about whether people were going to flip on him. We talked last week about how he wasn't paying Rudy Giuliani's legal fees. They've already started turning on him. And my question to you, tribal, whether it's on the right or on the left, but in this case, we're talking to you folks on the right because you guys are the ones and gals are the ones that were upset that I mentioned that he was indicted. My question to you is, if the guy did nothing wrong and you're so law and order, then let the process play out. And also, if the guy did nothing wrong, then why are his own friends saying that he did something wrong? Seems like there would be nothing to tell on, right? So just food for thought and just put your critical thinking caps on a little bit and don't take everything so personal, Cupcakes. It's not about you.
No doubt, man. Yeah, I've seen all the things, and it wasn't hard to figure out that people were going to start singing like songbirds, right? I mentioned the prisoner's dilemma last week. Well, of course you're going to talk. What are you going to get the raw end of the deal and take time for the orange man? I don't think so, right? And so All very interesting to see how it plays out. We will have obviously had the first Republican debates by the time this podcast is out. I look forward to watching them, but he will not be on the stage. And so that's interesting. Some constitutional scholars are saying that, he's not legally allowed to be president, something about the 14th Amendment, I think the 14th, that was meant for, Confederate folks. They're saying that it can and should be applied to him. So, you know how these elections go. It's still a long ways away, and we're still going to get a lot more news. And then, in some of these indictments, they're pushing to have the trials pushed out past the election to 2026 is the one date I read. So anyway, how I view these things. It's a lot to keep up with, and I don't do the best keeping up with the political side of things, but certainly enjoy the theater. And I was even going to mention the masks.
Yeah, I talked about COVID, right? And I thought COVID was over. Like I didn't go get another booster. I haven't had a booster in a year and a half. I probably had COVID 3 times before this time. If I had it this last go around, and I did relatively well with it. I didn't see the need, me being healthy and me knowing that, I tend to eat well. I exercise 5, 6, 7 times a week. I don't, I'm not a high risk health person that really has, immune system being compromised. So I didn't feel the need, to protect myself in that sense. But yeah, you would have thought COVID was just done and over with, because it wasn't on my bingo card for 2023.
Sure. Well, it largely is, especially for healthier groups, right? We put it behind us. In fact, I was cleaning something up this past weekend and found a mask, and I was like laughing about it. It was like in a drawer or something. And then I saw this week that a college, Atlanta College or Atlanta University, was, trying to implement a new mask mandate. And one, I don't think that's going to fly. And I'm not taking a political stance. I'm just taking sort of a common sense, and we've seen this movie before sort of stance, right? People, and I don't even use the word comply, because it's not about compliance. It's about, using your noggin and having some common sense. So interesting to me that they tried to bring back the mask mandate, at least at this one school. We'll see how far that goes in other institutions. But the reason I brought it up was about Trump, because I see people saying that, oh, this is for the election steal. Like, they're not going to let you vote in person. We're back to the mail-in ballots, right? And so when I start thinking about that, and then I've seen it's propaganda is what it is on both sides. Political machines do propaganda, is this spinning of history, right? Like, I'm seeing these, like the black and white images of the politicians who encourage the masks and the vaccines. And it's like, Biden in the mask and AOC in the mask. And it's like, how convenient to forget that Mr. Trump was the president when COVID-19 broke out. Mr. Trump was pushing, it was his vaccine. Do you remember? Like, we're going to get the vaccine out there. Like, we're going to do this. And so I just see this revisionist history, and it doesn't jive in my brain when I start, thinking
with reality.
This tribalism and stuff, and even with the inflation, right? The Bidenomics and the Bidenflation. It's like, I'm old enough to remember when Trump wanted his names on the first set of checks that went out. And so anyway,
none of them care about you folks. I'm telling you.
Lots of tribalism, and, to be expected, frankly, from a country where 40 to 50%, still believe in like original sin or something, that we're eternally damned because a woman talked to a snake in a garden. So, hey, go America.
I saw a meme the other day, and there was a very conservative meme, and it basically talked about, like, the fact that, the good book preaches, a husband and a wife, and then somebody replied with their own meme saying, can you show me Adam and Eve's wedding certificate? And I just laugh at all this stuff, because it's just again, I don't mock anyone's faith. I don't mock anyone's political beliefs. You're entitled to all the thoughts and all the things. I am just asking you all to not take it so seriously and use some critical thinking skills when possible. It'll make life easier. It'll make you less angry. It'll make you funner. You'll be funner to be around. You might be healthier because you won't have all these stress toxins in your body building up from some stuff that doesn't even really concern you. But anyway, that's my speech on just being healthier and not being so tribal and just, not taking everything so seriously. We started talking about uranium in usual Gerardo the fashion. I went in every other direction that I could possibly go in, but I mentioned the technicals, and I actually want to go back to getting your technical thoughts on the gold space, because we mentioned last week when gold dropped below the 1900 level, how technically gold was still holding up well, despite the fact that it was below 1900 and that it would have to break, I think it was the 1874 level, if I'm not mistaken, on a closing basis, for it to actually have further downside. It defended that level beautifully, and currently on Wednesday, August 23rd, we're shooting this an extra day early. It's at the 1915 level with the dollar index at, it was near, 103.4. It was near 104 here the last couple of days. So for gold to be this strong technically with the dollar index above 103, that's bullish as all heck to me. And even some of the gold names, Perpetua had some great news, getting another $15 million infusion of cash from the Department of Defense. And so all of that bodes well for its permitting. And again, this is one of the best undeveloped gold deposits in North America that's got a very strategic critical metal byproduct in antimony. And so to be getting that kind of support, bipartisan support from the government, that bodes well for that company because it's got the goods as far as the gold goes.
Yeah.
So thoughts on gold technically?
Yeah, well, I thought I laid it out pretty good last week. So
you did.
Go back and listen to that episode. But yeah, gold's I'll lay it out again. Gold's in a bull market. And so you used to buy the dip in tech stocks, and now you buy the dip in gold. And the dip in gold is the 1875 to the 1900 level. At least, for now, that can change. We need to close above that level on a monthly basis. So, we're still a few days away from the end of August, but it looks okay. Yeah. And to echo what you said, it definitely looks okay in the face of, one, the dollar, which you mentioned, but two, the U.S. 10-year yield is screaming higher. I was like 4.3 or 4.4%, I think it was.
Yep.
And so for gold to be holding up in the face of that tells me we're getting into the later stages of this current economic cycle, right? We had the bear market, we had the bear market bounce, we had the groveling for a Fed pivot, which was never going to come. Now we're in Jackson Hole. There'll be no activity this month, potentially a pause next month. And then, I'm not going to get into crystal ball, but what gold is saying is that, look, we're going to enter a recession, and there's going to be some sort of event. This bank stuff hasn't gone away. There's too much counterparty risk out there. It's probably looking at these interest rates and looking at the debt market, looking at the commercial real estate market, and saying, you know what, it's time for the safe haven to act as such. And that's basically what's been going on. Cash and gold have been strong. And yes, you're right. Several stocks in my portfolio were up 3, 4, 5, 6% in a day on this gold bounce. It went from 1900 to looks like 1920 and then pulled back. But yeah, fundamentally bullish.
Yeah, well, let's talk about bullish. We've been talking about the overall indices. I'll get your take here in a bit. NVIDIA, say what you say. They're saying sales are going to jump 170% this quarter, driven by, you guessed it, demand for AI chips. It reported $10.32 billion in data center revenue. Shares are up 8% after hours. New all-time highs there. It expects third quarter revenue of about $16 billion. That's $3.5 billion more than what some groups had forecasted. And so, look, as far as that sector of the market, it looks like we got a little bit of a run coming, because we know that, it's dominantly tech companies that control a good chunk of how the overall indices perform, right? Especially in the Dow and the NASDAQ. Thoughts on the revenue beat as it relates to the overall market, and maybe a little bit of a conversation about how the market isn't the economy, because the economy can be in a recession the way I think we're in on a global scale, and simultaneously the stock market could keep going up longer than you can stay liquid if you're shorting it, right?
Yeah, I haven't looked at NVIDIA individually, certainly not at these most recent earnings, but I would say that its peers weren't as good and weren't as euphoric about the outlook for AI. And I mentioned that recently with Microsoft taking a bit of a more temperate view, saying that, these revenues from AI are going to take a little bit to materialize. Good for NVIDIA. I mean, but I don't drink the haterade,
Yeah, no,
If
congrats.
people want to get into that, that's fine. But isn't it trading? What evaluations matter this day and age? But it's getting pretty wackily valued. And I guess I would say this: some of these meme stocks. I say a couple of things. Some of these meme stocks we've seen are finally starting to go away, as in like the AMC's, for example, have been going down precipitously, even on like high short percentage and things that used to make those stocks go up. In fact, let me just look at AMC for shits and giggles, because in the past couple of days, it's beginning. Oh yeah, this stuff from $5 at the end of July to under $2 today. So it's finally getting its comeuppance, right? Like reality is finally mattering there. Bed Bath and Beyond had react. I mean, it went bankrupt. It went bye-bye. And now I think you still have this group think. You still have the latent bullish mentality in the back of the retail crowd's lizard brain. And so they're still willing to chase things. I'm being serious.
I'm being serious too and laughing.
In this case, they're chasing something that's a real trend, and revenues. NVIDIA's having real results. But I definitely still think it's chasing a trend. I don't think it's within the realm of real valuations, and it's not something that I'm comfortable wading into. When you look at the breadth of the NASDAQ, it's still not good, and that's what you were saying about a few companies propping it up. We'll see what kind of legs it has, because August has not been good. Like every sector of the S&P is down for August, and so if one company can turn an entire index around, that'll be really interesting to watch. But my gut says that that'll get tempered here in the coming days. Talking about.
Yeah, I happen to agree with you. I think, reality is going to set in. But again, I don't follow the overall indices the way that you do. I don't track, the other sectors, anything outside of the resource sector, frankly, with the same type of diligence and, OCDism that I do with the resource space. So I'll defer to you on that. We talked uranium and we talked gold. It's worth mentioning that copper and energy also had, a pretty decent week. Copper was flirting with the 350 level here just a week ago and, got itself above 380 for a bit there and currently sitting at the 377 level. So thoughts there?
Yeah, I think we did this last week too. I'm having deja vu. Yeah. You're getting your opportunity to scale in is the thing. And I think that's what I said last week. First in energy. I did put a buyout, although we haven't got our price yet, so still waiting for a pullback. I think energy is bullish. And then I think you use the next couple of months to get in position for the copper side of things. I don't think copper goes to $4 just yet, but I do think over the next couple of months, it's time to start picking away. Like BHP reported hard this week. And so you're starting to get your opportunities there, and yet the stock actually went up. And so use these next couple of months to get positioned in copper, buy the pullbacks in oil. Oil is bullish. Copper is not bullish yet, but I believe we'll get there next year. And what else do I want to talk about? Energy. Can I talk about the carbon capture for 1 second?
Let's talk about it.
Yeah. So a couple of months ago, I wrote a section of my monthly letter about a sucky wucky machine. It was sort of tongue It was like Dr. Seuss. I was writing, why can't we just have a carbon sucky wucky machine? Like, why do we need the wind turbines and solar panels and nuclear reactors? Like, let's just suck this carbon out of the air. It's 2023, man. Like, let's get this going. And lo and behold, the carbon capture segment is having its moment here in the past couple of days. So let me run through it. Exxon bought a package of pipelines from a company called Denbury. They paid $4.9 billion for this 1,300 miles of carbon pipelines that this company has installed, some of which run by Exxon's refinery assets in the Gulf. So what's your word? What's your favorite word, Gerardo? Synergies, right? They can
Sinners.
the
Fucking
carbon from
snitches.
the refineries right in this network of pipelines. Also, it shouldn't escape you that to increase production in oil fields, you inject CO2 into the wells. So now they have a series of storage and pipelines for CO2 that they could potentially use to lower their input costs for oil production while simultaneously either generating carbon credits or reducing their own emissions. And then there was another deal by Occidental, which is another petroleum company. They paid $1 billion to buy a company called Carbon Engineering. They paid $1 billion, 1.1, I think it was. And they have a series of devices. And the article I wrote, I think it's like February or March or something, was about this. It's called direct air capture, or DAC, where they literally just capture the carbon in the air. Because if you're trying to reduce the amount of carbon in the air, that seems like the most logical way to do it, the sucky wucky machine. And then the other thing was the DOE is back in this as well. They're partnering with Occidental, giving them $1 billion to set up the first 30 direct carbon capture facilities or whatever. And so it's happened. And all these articles came out like over the past 2 weeks. And then yesterday I was doing my scrolling, and what do I start seeing?
Sucky.
Environmentalists oppose oil industry greenwashing. The negative side of carbon capture, right? Going back to the tribalism and things like that. And it's like, wait, if we need to reduce if we need to reduce the global temperature, and in order to do that, we have to reduce the carbon emissions by a certain level by a certain date. Wouldn't you just be like all in on this carbon capture? Like just suck the carbon out of the air and let's get this done. But no, they're not, because I would argue partially tribalism, but partially it's like not entirely the climate that they're for. It's like Trump and Biden, right? Like you're not voting for Biden, you're voting against Trump. You're not voting for Trump, you're voting against Biden. Like these folks aren't voting for the climate, they're voting against the oil companies. Do you know what I'm saying? And it's like here, they're literally, that's $5 billion in deals I just mentioned to clean up their act. And then environmentalists say what? They are greenwashing. The same thing how they oppose nuclear for the past 20 fucking years when it could have got them to their goals. And so pay attention to the black and white columns and rows, and especially the number on the bottom line, and not necessarily the hot air coming out of the other humans that we share this sphere with.
I consider myself and premise myself as a very, very simple man, y'all. It's how I've gotten by in life. I joke to everyone that I know that I do 5 things well, and those 5 things have allowed me to live for 44 years in a relatively happy state, right? I'm having the time of my life at 44 years old. I'm as happy as I've ever been, despite having a very challenging 2022. But my point is, sometimes it's just simple, folks. And sometimes the complex arguments and, well, what they call it, the greenwashing, and some of the other bullshit that you people make up is just fucking ludicrous, y'all. Like, what are we doing as a society?
You want the carbon out of the air or not? Like, what do you want?
Oh God, let me light it up a little bit. About a month or so ago, Jason Aldean put out a song, and we talked about how it was a dog whistling song to his base, and did it receive too much coverage? Was it like the worst, most race baiting dog whistling song in the world? No, it wasn't the worst, right? Was he finessing it? Absolutely. I'm sure he was finessing it, right? It worked. He shot to #1, and the right adopted it as its new marching song, and good for Jason, and clearly it worked, and good for his people, and I hope he has a better life as a result of it. Does amazing things with that, right? Again, no hater Jews here. We congratulate success around here. However you get it, you got to sleep with that. That's on you. But recently there was this gentleman that also independent gentleman. He started putting out some music. And
the red beard guy you're going to talk about.
Yes, and I have his name. Oliver Anthony Music is what he goes by. And that guy is the truth, Nick. I don't care who has adopted him as their mascot or as their warrior or as their tribal chief, which, I know a lot of groups on the right have. I don't know his political views. I frankly don't care. I don't listen to Cardi B because I think she's a great role model to my niece. I listen to Cardi B because I like the way she sounds on an album and on a song, right? I'm not listening to Oliver Anthony music for any of his political views. But man, I was digging into his catalog. And Nick, I know you like some of your country music, and I know for a fact that we have both been very disappointed with the lack of quality country acts that actually seem authentic. I would encourage you and anyone out there looking for some really, really good raspy throwback, well-written music to check out Oliver Anthony music, man. Look at these names. Rich Men North of Richmond. Cobwebs and Cocaine. I've got to get sober. Rich Man's Gold. I mean, just good stuff. And the minute you throw it on, it's just beautiful music, man. So, hey, don't plug music off in here, but we critique Mr. Aldean for a simple-ass song that happened to take off. I hope this gentleman takes off because he sounds absolutely great. He can write his tail off.
He's taken off. I've checked out a couple of the videos. He's got a strong, raspy, powerful voice. He plays this him the guitar. It sounds good. He can do his own opposite dog whistle in some of the lyrics I've heard, but it's good. I appreciate it. I checked it out. I hope he doesn't get too big too fast because I can see that happening, and I hope he doesn't squander it. And I also see the right, because you mentioned they've adopted him as their tribal leader or whatever, already turning, right? Like he was getting interviewed on Fox recently, and he said, diversity is our strength. The USA is the global melting pot, and it's diversity that's our strength. And, you know, on the interwebs, they're saying, all the elites already got to him. The elites already got to him. We can't even have nothing nice for a week. And it's like, really? Is it all have to be about whatever you think it's about, or can it just be about the man and the guitar and the lyrics?
Just some damn good music. Can it just be about some damn good music for a little bit, right? I mean,
but his message as far as the
ain't got a dollar. I love that one.
Wealth disparity and elites making rules for everybody else and not following them, and just generally capturing the sentiment of a fourth turning and how the populace feels about the institutions. He's doing a good job.
Yeah, and I wish if we were going to be tribal as a country, as you know, a state, as a city, as a community, I wish we were at least tribal about you know the wealth disparity in this country and the lack of upward mobility, and how, you know, whether you're poor white, poor black, poor Mexican, poor Italian, like everybody wants upward mobility, and if you're willing to work for that in a decent, honest way, you should have that opportunity. It shouldn't be so just, you know, hard for people in any place to work themselves up. And so I welcome the message in the limited way that I've heard it. I'm only like maybe 9 or 10 songs into the catalog that I've been able to dig up, but I agree with you. I hope he's thinking long term, and I hope that some of the elders in the business really, you know, on all sides are able to have good, healthy conversations with him about longevity, because he's got the goods as it relates to the pen and the voice. That is there. That is absolutely there. It's there in spades. So anyway, go check him out, y'all.
Mm-hmm. It's definitely worth checking out.
All right, back to markets and resource stocks before we get out of here. Anyway, what's on your mind, Nick? What are you looking at? I know we have a week where it's going to be really quiet, and then it's conference season starting mid-September. You and I will be at the Beaver Creek Precious Metals Summit. We'll also be in New Orleans. We've mentioned that a couple of times. We'll be there in November, if I recall correctly, early November. And so it's going to start picking up. The news flow is going to start picking up. I expect a pretty busy September and October as it relates to news. And I also expect a pretty busy tax law selling season too. So that's going to be something to get ahead of this year, folks. And we'll talk about that maybe a little bit next week. But what are you looking at, Nick?
It's interesting you mentioned tax law season. I was having a discussion with somebody about that this week, and they were saying, did people make money this year? They were like, not everybody owned Patriot.
Or Bravo.
He was saying there wasn't going to be much tax law selling because the TSX and the TSXV are so downtrodden. But anyway, I don't know the answer to that. Taking a couple of days, going to the lake.
Nice.
We'll come back. We'll write the September issue. We have the resumption of these student loan payments, which hasn't gotten a lot of attention. That's going to take the last wind out of the consumer sales. So 40 million people are going to start have to making those payments again. And they've been living on the margin, essentially. The the higher inflation they've been able to combat by not having to make that monthly payment, and that resumes. So you get another knock on the consumer, and that comes at a time when credit card interest rates are high and balances are at a record, and delinquencies are starting to creep up. So Amex is having a rough go. Macy's was saying in their earnings report this week that credit card delinquencies are starting to pile up. And so everyone's been wondering about this consumer and how they remain so strong. I guess they did a good job of stringing out those stimulus checks and either took advantage of some zero interest rate loans or, haven't had to make their student loan payments. So that's the next macro shoe to drop in the fall that I'm watching. And then if you indulge me for 90 seconds, I can tell you about the superconductor. So you've probably seen the news, and we should have talked about it last week, but a new potential type of room temperature superconductor has been invented. And I'm not a physicist, so go to the Wikipedia page, but it's called LK99. And this would be something that allows real maglev trains, real nuclear fusion. We just haven't had the substances, the materials to make a superconductor that could operate at ambient temperatures. And this group in South Korea, I think that's right. Yeah, Korea University figured it out. Lee Suk-bae and Kim Ji-hoon. And they took a lead crystal and they replaced some of the lead atoms with copper atoms. And that's how they got this superconductor to work, at least on the lab scale. And so there were some initial doubts as to whether it was viable. It's been reproduced. It's been reproduced in Russia and China, again, on the lab scale. And so obviously very, very early days. But as I heard one physicist say, very, very bullish for humanity if it's able to be put to use. So maybe read up on that, because something better than politics.
I will take bullish on humanity every day of the week over anyone's politics. With that said, if you're looking for market commentary, our rants, our ravings, our amazing editors' opinions and thoughts and what they're seeing out in the market, you should go to dailyprofitcycle.com/subscribe to get all that stuff straight to your inbox. I encourage everybody as well to subscribe to the Bizarro World channel. And look, again, we appreciate the comments. We appreciate the, we appreciate y'all writing in, even when it's not like the kindest. It's good to get a temperature check and be able to have a dialogue about, some of the things that are going on out there, the opinions that people have. And, I think it's going to be an interesting couple of years for us, Mr. Hodge. I think it's going to be fun. Yeah, Bizarro ones is going to be right. I am Gerardo Del Real, along with Mr. Nick Hodge. This was the 233rd episode of our weekly therapy session that we call Investing in Bizarro World. Cocaine and cobwebs, Nick. Send us out with some words of wisdom.
Check it out. Google LK99 and Google Oliver Anthony, and have a good week.
Hey there, you independent-minded investor. If you like this video, make sure to tell us so by clicking the like button below. Subscribe to our channel so you never miss another one. And share it with everyone you know on social media. You can also click the link in the description below to check out more information-packed videos just like this one. Thanks for watching.